Qingyun realized that he had traveled to ancient times and had a splitting headache. She didn't light up her ancient survival skills. I don't know how to recite poetry in opposition. Needlework, 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 needlework to please men, not to mention I don't even know how to farm or do business. The only way is to find a profession that doesn't require any of the 4 skills mentioned above. Years later, Qingyun, who ascended to the throne as emperor, looked at the civil and military officials and said, "You may not believe it when you say it, but I really don't want to be the empress." Former little brother, now a civil and military official. Yes, yes, everything you said is right, we forced you to become one. Keywords of the novel. Time traveling up to Qingyun without pop-ups, time traveling up to Qingyun TXT complete collection download, time traveling up to Qingyun latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Escape Young Master. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Escape Young Master. Qingyun woke up with a feeling of excruciating pain in the back of her head. However, she tilted her neck and pulled it to the back of her head, causing tears to flow from her eyes. Don't move, your brain is damaged and you can't move. Being dissuaded by someone, Qingyun stood still and opened his eyes. In front of him, an old man was reaching out to hold onto her head, chattering incessantly, as if he knew her very well. Don't move, in case it bleeds again, it won't take 10.5 days. In this situation, there's no medicine for you to take. The old man let out a long sigh, but what he didn't say was that he couldn't buy medicine with money. This kid is lucky enough to have a life. His ancestors have burned high incense. What is most lacking on the escape route? Water shortage. Lack of food. Lack of medicine. This kid is also lucky, he was brainwashed by someone, and the blood flowed all over the ground. I burned for 2 days without taking any medicine, thinking I couldn't make it through. Last night, I even lost my breath and thought I was dead. There were too many people who died along the way, and everyone had already become numb. When they saw the dead, their eyes swept lightly, and there was no emotion in their hearts. Who knows if they will be the next? I didn't expect this kid to come alive at dawn. What did the old man say? Qingyun didn't hear anything at all. At this moment, she was so shocked that there was no expression on her face, giving people a feeling of numbness. The people around her had such numb expressions, but she didn't appear unconventional. Looking at the old man's messy and greasy head, one could still see that he was wearing a retro bun. The robe was dirty all over, with no visible fabric on it. I didn't know what was sticking to it, with white patches in the east and red patches in the west. It looked very unsightly. Wearing a pair of mismatched cloth shoes, the soles were worn out, revealing a few toes outside. Judging from this figure alone, it is not a modern person. Don't talk nonsense about acting or going to the wrong set. She was patrolling by the river outside the village and was pushed down by someone. Qingyun is very certain that she has traveled. I just don't know if it's wearing it or being reborn in someone else. As a newcomer, adhere to the principle of speaking less and making fewer mistakes, and try not to speak as much as possible. If you wear it, everything is easy to discuss. In case it is reborn on someone else. Didn't the old man know her very well? What should I do if I wear it on? Unable to move his head, Qingyun turned his eyes and looked around. This place looks very similar to the mountain temple on the back of their village, which has been abandoned for decades and no one worships it. Ruins and broken walls, air leaking everywhere, looking up at an azure sky, overlooking the undulating mountains in the distance. There is still half of the rooftop-covered lobby, crowded with people of all ages and genders, either expressionless or numb. From their faces and eyes, there is no trace of longing or hope for life. Qingyun suddenly felt a sense of unease. She didn't want to go to the Yanwang Palace to report as soon as she came back to life. Where the hell did she wear it? The situation is very bad. Don't look, it's been 2 days now. If your 2 guards can come back, they will come back early. There hasn't even been a trace yet. It's more ominous than good. Let's plan for yourself. The old man saw Qingyun looking out the door, thinking he was waiting for those two guards to come back. Guardians. Qingyun blinked and saw that she still had two guards, indicating that she was not wearing them and had been reborn onto someone else. Even having guards, the original owner's identity is not simple. Unfortunately, she has no memory of the original owner. Although the old man didn't speak well, Qingyun felt relieved. Why? Because the old man is not an elder of the original owner, his words just now have already been revealed. During the old man's speech, Qingyun carefully observed that except for the old man who was more familiar with her, he was surrounded by strangers who were indifferent to everything around him. That is to say, the original owner had no other relatives around except for the guards she brought. Now that even the guards are missing, it's convenient for Qingyun to not have to be afraid to deal with others. It's rare to have an acquaintance around, so there's no need to worry about losing his vest. Qingyun has the intention to inquire with him about the situation. Grandpa, where have you been? I guess I haven't spoken for a few days. My voice is hoarse and a bit rusty, not pleasant to hear, and my throat hurts. Qingyun pursed her lips, probably because the original owner hadn't drunk water for a few days. Her lips were dry and cracked, and when she opened her mouth, the skin burst, oozing out tiny drops of blood. Then she pursed them back into her mouth. She specifically looked at it and everyone's situation was similar to hers, with dry and cracked mouths, clearly not drinking water for several days. In other words, everyone ran out of water. The clever one secretly hid some water, which was also a lifesaver. They couldn't bear to drink it themselves and were so thirsty that they secretly took a sip, wetting their lips. Who would take it out for others to drink? It's not like they got kicked in the head by a donkey. Qingyun looked around, and the half-collapsed temple lobby was crowded with people. He couldn't find a person who was slightly clean and tidy, all dirty and greasy, with disheveled hair and dirty face, and couldn't tell who they were. This group of people, looking left and right, looks a bit like the refugee show on TV. To be honest, Qingyun is a bit panicked. She has smeared her eyes and doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't even know the name of the original owner, let alone where she came from. Do she still have any relatives at home? Flip through these mountains and forests to reach the boundaries of Longqing. There are fewer people in Longqing. Look at these people in the temple, tired, hungry, and thirsty, who can still persist in walking. The human heart really cannot withstand the test, and if we continue, we are afraid that something will happen that we will change our children and eat. Longqing is their lifeline. In the first few years, Longqing was still a good place. The people were simple, the land was fertile, and the villagers' lives were relatively good. Since the former governor arrived, the raids have been too fierce, and the people below have followed suit, causing the whole Longqing to complain and the people are struggling. However, in just 2 years, coupled with floods, the current Longqing is not as good as ours. The old man sighed. If it weren't for the severe drought this year, several provincial cities around him would have been affected by drought one after another, and even Shifeng Prefecture would have been affected. As a lonely old man, he wouldn't have left his hometown and traveled thousands of miles to seek a living in a foreign land. After listening, Qingyun had a feeling of, as expected. What a famine escape. No wonder you are so disheveled and down. The original owner, a spoiled and delicate little girl from a young age, suddenly encountered a great disaster and had no family around her. Now, even the guards who protected her are missing. Being among a group of indifferent and famished refugees, I was fatally injured, tired, hungry, tired, and thirsty. I was constantly worried and scared, and I scared myself to death. I don't know what happened at the original owner's house, so a little girl was left alone on the road. In case of any accident on the way, there wouldn't even be a person to collect the body. Qingyun made up her mind that she would follow the old man all the way to escape famine. From when she opened her eyes until now, only the old man had known her, and only the old man had cared about her for a few words. She didn't know how others were, at least she didn't see that the old man was malicious towards her. New book, Seeking Babies Collection, recommended tickets, comments Momoda, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Young Master, Still Escaping the Wilderness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Young Master, Still Escaping the Wilderness. She didn't expect to escape on her own. She didn't know much about the local customs and traditions, and if she ran aimlessly, she would end up in a bandit's den. She could hear that Longqing was not a good place to settle down. If she could persist, it would be best to walk further and find a place with beautiful mountains, clear waters, and outstanding people to settle down. Qingyun swept around, and the group of refugees in the temple really couldn't hold on anymore. They were skinny and only had a skin left. It's better to survive in Longqing than to die on a deserted road. Qingyun added Tiangon's cracked mouth and moved closer to the old man. He slightly bent down and lowered his head, saying in a low voice, "Grandpa, could you tell me how I got hurt? After I woke up, my mind was buzzing with pain. I don't remember what happened before." After resting for a while, she finally regained some strength. Qingyun carefully touched the back of her head, causing her to gasp in pain. This wound was definitely attacked from behind. When it came to this matter, the old man looked at her sympathetically and pitifully, sighing and saying, "How else can we hurt ourselves? Who else can we do besides bandits? With guards around you, who wouldn't dare to have an eye for you?" Qingyun thought to himself, "That's hard to say. 3 days ago, at Leopard Ridge, I met a group of bandits who were ruthless and insane. They didn't even let go of refugees, killed anyone they saw, and even took away many girls. No wonder I didn't see a few young girls. It turned out they had been robbed by bandits." Qingyun blinked and realized that the original owner had escaped a disaster. The reputation of ancient women was very important. Being held by a man was considered frivolous. Unless the man was responsible, the fate of the woman would be very tragic. If a man is unwilling to take responsibility and does not become a monk, there is only a dead end. Only when he dies can he preserve his reputation and not burden other girls in the family. Entering the bandit's den, Qingyun, a common person, heard so many girls being snatched away and had a tragic ending. She sympathized for a few seconds, grateful that she could still be okay. This is not a rule of law society. Women have low status, limited abilities, and are powerless. Then the old man said, "Fortunately, you are a young master. You are so delicate and good-looking, and I don't know how much you have suffered. At that time, those bandits rushed down the mountain and saw you among the refugees. Several of them rushed towards you. If it weren't for the guards around you, they would fight to protect you. In this world, there are some abnormal people who not only like beautiful women, but also have a good male style, especially handsome young men. The world is going downhill. Wait, she seems to have heard something terrible. Young master. Me." Qingyun's pupils shrank slightly and asked in surprise, pointing to himself. Before wearing it, she was a bit taller than the average person, a bit more handsome, just a little more handsome than a celebrity, just one of the top 10 in the world. The airport ahead is a bit tight. From childhood to adulthood, the girl's love letters have never stopped. No matter how much her external conditions resemble a puppy, it cannot conceal that she is a genuine girl. Girls who have been around for more than 20 years, even if they become men, they cannot accept being a woman. My eyes were a bit dark, and Qingyun pretended to be careless and rubbed his front, causing his heart to sink to the bottom of the water. It's really flat. If it weren't for the inconvenience of being surrounded by people, Qingyun would have wanted to peel off his clothes and take a good look. Taking her as an example, Pingda may not necessarily be a man, she could be a woman. A convex one may not necessarily be a female, but it could also be a male. The old man thought Qingyun was surprised by his identity and said angrily, "It's not that you're so difficult, it's me. If it weren't for the few guards who fought tirelessly to protect this kid along the way, he would have become someone else's plate of food. No matter where you bring it, it's like hating the rich. I'm already a young master, still fleeing the wilderness. She's afraid she's not a fake young master. Qingyun abruptly shifted the topic, leaving aside the question of whether it is a girl or not. The top priority now is to survive. Is the young master remarkable? Why can't the young master escape? Back then. The old man just started and suddenly stopped talking, glaring at him in anger. After waking up, this kid was much less likable than before. The old man was still fleeing the wilderness. Young master is nothing. The old man was very angry. Although this kid wasn't likable before, at least he didn't speak so aggressively. Think back then. Qingyun narrowed his eyes, and the old man also had a story. Grandpa, where are we going? The old man ignored her, and Qingyun took the initiative to approach. Anyway, she was a thick-skinned person. Who is us with you? Go ahead and watch you get angry. You are a young master born with a golden spoon in your mouth. I have been an old man for 8 generations, but I come from a muddy background. We are not on the same path. You can go wherever you want, and with your legs growing on you, who can't resist it? The old man became angry, despised her, and drove people away. Qingyun, this thick-skinned person, was scolded and even chuckled. Look at you. What's so angry about you? It's not worth it if you get angry and break your body. Aren't we discussing it? The old man glared at her directly. Qingyun raised an eyebrow and, with a temper even stronger than hers, turned to look outside the door. The original owner didn't know how many days he hadn't eaten, and his stomach was growling like thunder. Qingyun changed direction and lazily leaned against the door, saving his energy. She was not the only one with a rumbling stomach. Some were so hungry that they couldn't bear it. They ran out of the temple door and picked leaves to stuff their mouths, as if starving ghosts were reincarnating, eating cruelly. As for whether it can be eaten or cleaned, no one cares. As long as it is not poisonous, just chew it up. Anyway, no one will die. This book was conceived by Dong Dong for a long time, and I hope the babies can provide more support *****. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Finding Food. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Finding Food. At this moment, all the people in the temple rushed towards the trees in front of the temple. Those who could pick the leaves ate them, while those who couldn't pick them simply tore at the wild grass on the ground and gnawed on them. The situation of one family of 3 is unforgettable for a lifetime. When the husband snatched a branch, the relatively tender leaves at the tip of the branch were handed to the wife next to him. Young son, unable to chew through leaves, eagerly looking at his parents. Mother takes off the tender leaves, chews them in her mouth, chews them finely, and then feeds them to her son. Watching this scene, Qingyun's heart grew sour and uncomfortable. At this moment, she truly felt the cruelty of escaping from famine. Then he turned his head to look elsewhere, his eyes filled with unprecedented confusion. She is not a native who was born and raised. She cannot embroider or weave, and has only a partial understanding of farming. She is also completely ignorant of music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. With just her physique, men don't look up to her. It seems impossible for her to marry a man with a large number of wives and concubines. There's no need to think about marrying a wife. Her future is shrouded in darkness. Qingyun glanced at the empty temple, and besides her and the old man, there were 3 people who had not gone to eat the leaves. She also looks quite fair and doesn't look like a refugee fleeing from famine. I don't know if it's because she's from a wealthy family and can't afford to eat, or if she has surplus food. The refugees finished eating the leaves and lay on the spot, waiting for dawn to break. They left in groups of 3 or 5. In the end, there were only 5 people left in the temple. Qingyun looked at the old man and stood up, supporting the shaky door panel. With a clang, something fell off her body. The sound was quite loud, startled a few people and they all looked over. Qingyun was also startled, but she knew how to pretend and couldn't see it on her face. She calmly looked at the cloth bag on the ground, bent down, reached out, picked it up, stuffed it into her arms, and lifted her foot to continue walking outside the door. "Where are you going?" the old man asked anxiously as he watched her go out. "I'm feeling very hungry. I'll go around the woods and see if I can find something to eat." "Don't worry, I won't leave you behind." Qingyun tightened her belt, her stomach burning with pain. If she doesn't eat anything, she will also go eat some leaves. "Do you know which one can eat and which one cannot?" The old man was really worried about letting him find something to eat. He stood up trembling and swayed a few times before finally standing firm, slowly walking over. "You young master, you are not diligent in your limbs and do not divide your grains. Don't find a poisonous one for me to eat." "Young master, this joke can't pass, can it?" Qingyun rolled his eyes and was too lazy to argue with the old man, as it would take a lot of energy and not enough to fill his stomach. The old and young were arguing and making noise, slowly moving towards the forest next to the temple. The forest is deep, the trees are big, and there is probably a lot of food inside. Qingyun stood by the edge of the forest and took a deep breath. Then, he took a big step into the forest and turned to the old man, saying, "Don't go in, wait for me outside." Qingyun was already struggling to get in by himself, and the old man's body was dragging his feet. If a wild boar comes, the old man will be the one delivering vegetables. Will she run or not? "Let's go." The old man is not old enough to walk. Ignoring Qingyun's kindness, the old man stubbornly shook his head, turned his back, and followed into the forest with 3 shakes. Qingyun was afraid that he would suddenly fall while walking. In order to keep up with the old man's footsteps, Qingyun walked slowly, paying attention to his safety while also searching around for wild fruits and plants to eat. "I don't know if this ancient thing looks the same as modern things," Qingyun muttered. "If it's different, he'll have to wait until he dies." Flattery begging for the tickets of the babies. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Attacks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Attacks. Can you hunt? The old man looked at him looking around and thought he was looking for prey, so he had some expectations for him. At least this kid is still useful. "No," she said. If she knows how to hunt, she still needs to find wild fruits. "So why are you flipping back and forth?" The old man didn't have a good way of speaking, and his disdainful eyes shouldn't be too obvious. Qingyun wasn't blind, so he couldn't even pretend he couldn't see him. "It seems like you know how to do it." Qingyun became angry. She was not a clay bodhisattva, and no matter how good her temper was, being repeatedly squeezed by the old man made everyone angry. At present, she is so hungry that her head is dizzy and her eyes are dizzy. Her stomach is burning with a sharp pain, and the pain in the back of her head is severe. It's strange that she has a good temper. The evil fire in my heart is rushing upwards, unable to be suppressed. The evil fire erupted, and my heart seemed to be less blocked. Unfortunately, imagination is beautiful, reality is cruel. I searched all the way, but couldn't find anything to eat, not even a wild fruit. I'm not short-tempered, Stain. The old man glanced at him and didn't argue with her. He circled around a vine with a thick arm and shouted to Qingyun, "Kid, come and dig this." Summon Qingyun to be smooth. In the face of hunger, apart from life and death, there is really no big deal. Qingyun looked at the leaves now, her eyes lit up, and she walked slowly over, carefully studying the vines to make sure they were not the species she knew. "Are you sure this can be eaten?" It's not that she doubted the old man, really, she didn't see it from the old man. He's a farmer, probably about the same as her. Where's all that nonsense? If you dig, then dig. The old man glared at her angrily. If it weren't for his inability to dig a bone, there would be no need to look at his youthful expression. Seeing Qingyun motionless, he snorted coldly, "Do you still want to eat?" Qingyun thought that the old man had been exposed by her, which made him angry and embarrassed. He wanted to say how to dig without tools. "You can't use your hands, can you? Isn't it just playing TV, digging a big hole just a few times?" Glancing at the old man with a look of almost starving, Qingyun touched his nose and didn't answer back. He looked around from side to side. The least scarce thing in the forest is the branches. In order to have a bite, Qingyun also fought hard. Despite feeling dizzy, she worked hard and broke a branch that was the thickness of her arm, almost losing half of her life. "I found a stone, sharpened the ends of the branch, and came back to sit on the ground, gesturing towards the roots of the vine. Old man, are you sure this can be eaten?" Qingyun added a mouthful and didn't even shout. She still felt angry in her heart. She is already starving, and if she finds out that she has done useless work in the end, she will probably go crazy. She went crazy and even scared herself. "Pow!" The old man nodded, his eyes turning black from hunger. Vines are their last hope. Qingyun remained silent, digging and looking at the old man. If this thing wasn't something to eat, she would dismantle the old man. It was also her luck that this piece of land was sandy, not so compact, and it wasn't as difficult to dig. But for Qingyun now, it's still a bit difficult. "It feels like we've been digging for a century, digging out the depth of an arm. Old man, come and see if this thing can be eaten or not. I'm almost exhausted." Qingyun let out a weak howl, her eyes turning red from hunger. She tapped on the exposed roots of the vines and slowly got up to make way. Picking up a stone from the ground and stuffing it into his hand, the two of them met in sight, and then quietly walked to the nearby tree to lean against it, slowly gripping the branch in his hand. The old man paused, clenched the stone in his hand, and then squatted down to take a closer look. "Well. It seems like he's almost grown up. Why does it look different? It shouldn't be. The family who used to live across from him used to dig up things that looked like this." Qingyun's mouth twitched, so it wasn't for eating. The old man doesn't even know him. She knew she couldn't listen to the old man's advice, as it almost broke her hand and turned out to be something she couldn't eat. There is a faint rustling sound in the forest, like the sound of small animals walking, accompanied by the rustling of leaves in the wind, gradually moving towards this direction. If it weren't for Qingyun's sharp facial features, he would have thought he had heard something wrong. He shrank behind the tree, hiding his whole body tightly against it. Suddenly, Qingyun moved and flashed out from behind the tree. With lightning speed, he inserted the branch in his hand towards the opposite side. "Ah!" A mournful scream echoed through the sky. The screamer was a young man, staring at Qingyun with disbelief in his eyes, covering his punctured stomach, and pointing at her with trembling fingers. "You!" Then with a loud bang, the giant hit the ground, convulsing and staring at Qingyun. Soon, there was no movement. Qingyun looked expressionless and coldly glanced at him, recognizing him as one of the three people left behind in the ruined temple before. As soon as Qingyun got her hands on it, she pulled out a branch and, poop. As the branch detached, blood sprayed out and splattered on her face. Before Qingyun could confirm whether the man was dead or not, his hand holding the tree pole shook. The man quickly retreated behind the tree, remained calm and vigilant in the dark. This person is sneaky and follows them, clearly ill-intentioned. What is the purpose? Qingyun didn't expect to accidentally touch something in his arms. Was it because of this? Those three people are from the same gang, and it's impossible for only one to follow. There are also two lurking nearby, waiting for an opportunity to take action. Unfortunately, she is now completely powerless, unable to concentrate and unable to find the traces of the other two. Yu Guang glanced at the old man's side, but he couldn't see him anymore. His eyes twitched and he was quite agile. The old man spared his life very much. When he heard the screams, he didn't need Qingyun's reminder and had already found a place to hide. He has old arms and legs, so he still doesn't want to cause trouble for Qingyun. Qingyun was gasping for breath, her hand holding the branch trembling, and her eyes turned black in waves. She could only stand up with the support of the big tree. Just dealing with someone, using all her strength. Qingyun felt uneasy, and the scenery in her sight was full of ghosting. The buzzing sound in her ears made it even more difficult for her to concentrate. The old man hiding in the bushes also noticed that Qingyun was not quite right, as if he was about to faint. He was so anxious that he muttered, "It's done," and his hand holding the stone tightened. Qingyun shook her head and pinched herself fiercely. The pain temporarily kept her awake, but her body reached its limit and she stumbled. At this moment, she felt something unusual on her left. A strong gust of wind came over, and Qingyun flipped forward and out from behind the tree, avoiding the surprise attack on her left. Bang! A thick wooden stick with an arm hit the tree heavily, causing the leaves to rustle and spin down. It can be seen how much force the attackers used. It's another day to ask for tickets, Maeda. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Fighting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Fighting. If this were to hit her, the consequences would be unimaginable. With her physique, even if she doesn't die, she will still be disabled. Qingyun gasped for breath and dodged the surprise attack, using up all the energy he had just accumulated. Looking up at the person who attacked her, it was another member of the three-person gang. The second person has appeared, and I don't know where to hide another one. The person watched as Qingyun dodged the surprise attack and glared fiercely. With a wave of the tree pole in his hand, it hit her head again. The strong wind rising from the tree trunks came roaring and howling. The second wave of attacks has arrived before Qingyun can take action. Qingyun didn't have time to dodge, so he grabbed the tree pole and blocked it. With a loud thud, the tree pole blocked the wooden stick above his head. The other party was strong and healthy, unlike Qingyun dragging her weak and sickly body, and it was a deadly blow to her. The force of the blow was like 1,000 pounds, while Qingyun was like a praying mantis blocking her arm. It was evident from her trembling arm that she could not withstand it for long. "Brother, if you have something to say, if you're looking for money, I'll give you everything my brother has." The current situation is unfavorable for her, and Qingyun is pondering ways to deal with it while trying to delay him as much as possible. "Murder pays off. You killed my younger brother, I want you to pay off. If you die, your money will still be mine." The man's bloodthirsty gaze fixed on her, with a wild and slightly excited look, and his hand pressed down hard. Reluctantly supporting Qingyun, she couldn't resist it. She felt that the tree pole supported by her hands was as heavy as 1,000 pounds and was about to hit her head. The man seemed to have seen Qingyun die in his hands, and his gaze on her became even crazier and bloodthirsty, shouting, "Go die." "Who? Kill him." Suddenly, Qingyun shouted loudly behind him, startling the man and immediately turning his head to look. Seizing this opportunity, Qingyun took advantage of the moment when the man turned around and forcefully pushed him to break free from his grip, rolling on the spot and avoiding a fatal blow. The man turned around and saw nothing behind him. He understood that he had been deceived and hated Qingyun to death. He even hated Qingyun for being cunning and teasing him like a fox. With a flick of his wooden stick, it swept towards Qingyun's head. Until now, Qingyun has reached its limit in the battle. Even though he knew he couldn't stop it, he still grabbed the tree pole to block it. Dong! With a loud bang, the tree pole in my hand shook and flew out, numbing my entire arm. Qingyun only had time to turn her head and avoid a fatal blow, when the wooden stick hit her shoulder. With a click, the shoulder bones shattered, causing Qingyun to sweat in pain and his eyes to turn black. The situation is even more unfavorable for her, and Qingyun will not give up until the last moment. She knew that once she fainted, it would be her death. Hold on to one breath, just about to flip to the side. Bang! She was suddenly attacked from behind and knocked down to the ground. Qingyun spewed out a mouthful of blood and lay motionless on the ground. Yu Guang saw that the person who attacked her was the last of the three gangs. Aren't you quite capable? The man fiercely poked Qingyun with his wooden stick, thinking about what she had just teased him, and vented his frustration by slapping her. Puff, Qingyun spat out another mouthful of blood, curled up his body, and looked at him expressionlessly. What are you looking at? Believe it or not, I dug your eyes. The man raised his wooden stick and threatened fiercely. Qingyun grinned, revealing his blood-stained teeth. Stop playing and solve it quickly, the man who came out impatiently urged. The old man didn't find him, but he's quite good at hiding. He can't run far, he must be nearby. I'll go find him and solve it. Come over quickly. Babies, throw the tickets over, MoMA, end of this chapter. Chapter 6. Family Heirlooms. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 7. Petition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Petition. Qingyun nodded and bowed, smiling obsequiously. He reached into his clothes, took out the cloth bag, and handed it over with both hands. Brother, heirloom, heirloom. The appearance of that dog leg is really unsightly. The gangster didn't take it right away. He looked at her carefully for a while. He didn't see Qingyun's abnormality, so he took it. The rest of the light kept looking at her. If she was different, he immediately sent her back to go home. Qingyun accompanied him with a smile, and his remaining light casually glanced at the branch at the foot of the criminal. He slowly moved over and hugged his leg, begging for mercy. Brother, I have given you my family heirloom. You should keep your word and let me join you. I have many uses and can do anything with less food. In the future, I will take care of all the laundry, cooking, and errands. For the sake of his own life, Qingyun's tongue was full of lotus flowers, and he spoke wildly, dealing with him and deceiving the criminals to divert their attention. I can also act as bait to scare those refugees and make them hand over their money. Along the way, there have been many people who have escaped famine and have money in their hands. As someone like me, they will definitely believe me. When I coax them to a remote place. Qingyun gestured to his neck and then smiled seductively, asking him, what do you think of this idea? The gangster planned to take the heirloom and send her back to her hometown. But after listening to Qingyun's idea, I was really moved and thought about it, thinking it was feasible. But just letting her go so easily, feeling unwilling in my heart, I kicked her injured shoulder and said, let Grandpa see if your heirloom is real. I really let you go and let you join us. Qingyun was so painful that he broke out in a cold sweat, his face turned pale. He couldn't help but spit out blood before nodding and saying, really, I dare not lie to anyone. Qingyun's miserable situation finally satisfied the gangster. He threw away his cloth bag and looked at Qingyun with malicious intent, saying, but that old man, you have to take care of him yourself. Qingyun was scared and froze all over, trembling for a while before saying, I can't do anything. The old man was taking care of me all the way. The gangster was like a cat playing with a mouse, teasing Qingyun. He glanced at Qingyun, who was frozen, as if he hadn't seen her fear, and slowly said. What can't be done? It's no different from killing chickens and ducks, and it's not your family. If you want to join us, it's not just empty talk. There must be a petition, and the old man is your petition. If he dies, you'll live. Think carefully. Bad dish. The old man hiding in the nearby jar bushes was anxious and greeted the 8th generation of the criminal's ancestors in his heart. He was even more worried about Qingyun's young age and lack of understanding, and was comforted by the criminal in a few words. The place where he hid was not found by the criminals, but Qingyun knew it. He is a person who is half buried in the coffin, and it doesn't matter if he dies. I'm afraid Qingyun will confess to him, and the criminals will not let him go. He muttered to himself, son of a bitch, be more competitive. Don't listen to him, he's lying to you. But seeing Qingyun struggling for a while, then various entanglements, pains, and finally the expression of breaking the jar, throwing and giving up, it was clear that the dead boy was really planning to kill him and commit suicide. The old man was angry and anxious, and finally laughed angrily, thinking to himself, if I had known you were a white-eyed wolf, I shouldn't have saved you when you were attacked by bandits. The old man also gave up. He's just an old man, how could he do better than two young people? Let's die if we die. Who cares if he's a plate of food? End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Tried me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Tried me, alright, I did it. Old man, don't blame me. I have no choice but to take action for myself. Your kindness will always be remembered by me. When Qingyun gritted his teeth and said this, his expression on the face was particularly fierce. That's right. I'll be good brothers from now on. The thug laughed wildly and kicked Qingyun, flipping open his cloth bag to see. The old man fell to the ground in a desolate state, with a lifeless expression on his face, waiting for Qingyun to come and kill him. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. Qingyun grabbed the tree pole on the ground, glanced at the startled thug who opened his cloth bag, and suddenly burst into action. He grabbed the tree pole and fiercely inserted it into his chest. At this moment, Qingyun's entire body's strength accumulated and erupted in his hands. In the eyes of the criminal, Qingyun was just a dog, a distressed aristocratic dog. Now that this aristocratic dog was beaten and scared by him, he shook his head and begged for its tail, so he was not on guard against her and stuck it straight. You. The criminal pointed at Qingyun and looked at her incredulously. At this moment, Qingyun didn't have the same dog-legged appearance as before. His whole body emitted a cold light, and his black yo-yo eyes stared at him coldly and mercilessly. You are. After the thug regained consciousness, the things in his hand rolled onto the ground along with the cloth bag. He waved his hand towards Qingyun and his eyes widened. You lied to me, I wanted to kill you. How could Qingyun give him a chance? With a heavy kick on the ground, he used the rebound force of the ground to push the criminal back a few steps and collide with the tree behind him. At the same time, his hands exerted force and pushed the tip of the tree pole deeply into the criminal's body. Puff, blood sprayed out of the criminal's mouth and splattered on Qingyun's face, leaving Qingyun indifferent. The two of them looked at each other, Qingyun's face expressionless, with no trace of warmth in his eyes. The criminal's fair face was already twisted and ferocious, staring at her fiercely and bloodthirsty, unwilling and struggling towards her. Big brother will avenge me. I'm waiting for you below. It's not lonely on the road to the underworld. There's an official who will accompany me for burial. I'm worth it in this lifetime. The criminal grinned and blood gushed out like a stream, staining his teeth red. With a poo sound, he spat out a mouthful of blood towards Qingyun's face. Qingyun didn't pay attention to his words and dodged, spitting blood on her collar. Qingyun glanced at her and grabbed the tree pole, slowly twisting it in like a gong in a nail. The criminal sprayed a few mouthfuls of blood, slowly slipping his hand around Qingyun's collar, and finally, unwilling to accept it, he closed his eyes. I regret it so much in my heart. If I had known this kid was acting with him and deceiving him, I would have given him a stick and sent him to the west when I caught him. Despite Qingyun's expressionless expression and seemingly calm demeanor, her spirit was actually in a highly tense state. She held on to the tree pole with her hand, not daring to relax at all. It wasn't until the criminal's last breath was gone that she breathed a sigh of relief. I reached under the criminal's nose and tried, but there was no breath. I also touched the pulse on his neck, but there was no breath. Finally, I pressed it against his chest, but I didn't hear any heartbeat. Confirming that the culprit was really dead, completely dead, Qingyun let go of the tree pole, both hands trembling, and fell to the ground, staring ahead in a daze. On the first day of waking up, I almost starved to death, and now I have experienced a heart-wrenching battle, almost reporting to the Yen Wang Palace again. It is said that she is not afraid of the impossible. In modern times, she only physically assaults people, and only physically assaults disabled people. Killing 2 people in a row, her hands didn't tremble like hers, and the disgusting feeling was very uncomfortable. She rushed up and wanted to vomit but couldn't vomit, it was too uncomfortable. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Good performance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Good performance. The old man, who was waiting for his death, was stunned by a series of unexpected events. After a while, he realized and quickly ran out of the bushes. Stinky kid, you did a good job in acting. Even I was deceived. I thought your kid didn't recognize me, and he really wanted the old man's life. The old man grinned and patted Qingyun, seemingly comforting that Qingyun had not deteriorated. Then he turned to the thug behind Qingyun and looked around to confirm that he was completely dead. He then turned to another thug who was also completely dead before slowly returning. What are you doing out here? Qingyun was completely powerless, without even the strength to roll his eyes and glare at the old man. She doesn't have any ability to protect herself at the moment, she can easily take down a few years old child. No, the old man slapped her to the ground. Qingyun sat with great effort, so he simply lay on the ground and looked at the blue sky and white clouds above his head, saying, "There's still one person, I'm already exhausted." The old man let out a "bah," and after a lot of effort, he pulled out the tree pole from the criminal's body and sat next to her panting. Are you the old man who is greedy for life and afraid of death? If it weren't for your care along the way, he would have died long ago, with a violent corpse in the wilderness and not even a grave. He has survived until now, and I have earned it. Qingyun raised her eyebrows, and sometimes the old man's words and actions made her feel like a scholar. It's really strange. A bunch of old bones, I can't move you. There's no good place to hide here, but the place where I'm hiding is a feng shui treasure. It's a pity. The 2 of us are waiting here, and when the criminals come back, I'll rush forward. After you, the 2 of us will meet underground. The old man tugged at the grass and wiped the blood on the tree stem very seriously. What can we do, old, weak, sick, and disabled, besides waiting for death? Qingyun's mouth twitched and he even had to pull her to death. It's not a pity, take advantage of him not coming. You can go back and hide it. It's better to live one than to die two. You don't even have a avenger. Old man, depending on your appearance, you're a person who lives 100 years, and revenge depends on you. The old man snorted coldly, if you want to avenge yourself, I'll step into the coffin with 1 foot, dragging on and on, living day by day. You're lucky, but if you die, you still have to call me around. Won't your conscience hurt? Qingyun was exhausted, but was amused by the old man's words. Really, if it weren't for her certainty that the old man was from ancient times, he would have thought he had traveled through time like her in his last words. The 2 of them were arguing and heard a sound from the bushes ahead. They knew that the criminal who was looking for the old man had returned. Not long after, I saw the thugs pushing through the bushes and walking out. I glanced at 1 or 2 people lying and sitting, and then I saw my brothers in the tree behind me, whose lives and deaths were unknown. I cried out in pain, second. The old man Qingyun and the old man looked expressionless, like outsiders. When they saw the heartbroken criminal holding the body of the second brother and crying in pain, they remained indifferent and felt very happy in their hearts. Killers are constantly killed. You crazy and wicked villain, it's good to die. They have died, and more innocent people have survived. It's all about making contributions to society. Unfortunately, there is still one who survived, and she is powerless. Second brother, what's wrong with you? I'm big brother, you should say a word. Open your eyes and look at big brother is here, don't die. Why did you leave your brother behind and let me have to deal with my parents in the future? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Can we save dim sum? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Can we save dim sum? The human tragedy next to me is like a river of sadness. A group of elderly and young here, chatting in a good mood. Both of them knew what their fate was going to be, and now they don't watch much of the gangsters' jokes. When do they want to watch it? If they want to watch it later, they don't even have to watch it. Hey, old man, do you think it's strange? Why isn't there any prey in this big forest? We've been walking for so long, and we haven't seen any wild chickens or rabbits, not even a snake. I used to hear people say that wild rabbits and chickens are rampant in the mountains and forests, and I still believe it. In the future, if there's a chance, I'll have to beat him up. This opportunity has to wait for her to return to modern times, and whether she can go back is just empty talk. Wild chickens and rabbits. Yes, they are inside, but you can't even catch them. You just foolishly remember. This is the outskirts of the mountain. With so many people fleeing from the wilderness, you can see the shadow of wild vegetables. After digging up the food that can be eaten, you can catch the prey on the periphery, but you can't catch it. You run inside. The old man glanced at Qingyun, who was almost starving and still wanted to eat. Was he afraid that the old man wouldn't die fast enough? The world is unfair, even heaven doesn't have eyes. A good person doesn't have a long life, and disasters will last for thousands of years. In his lifetime, he has never done anything that harms the world or harms the people. He has grown old and has no place to enjoy his old age. Immediately, there is no more complete corpse capital. Sad, sad. Qingyun looked at the sky without saying a word and thought to herself, she doesn't know that the world is unfair, but heaven must have eyes. Otherwise, how could she survive? Although she will soon go to the Yanwang Palace to report. Qingyun turned his head to look at the crying bandit and pursed his lips. Wang Ba Lao Zi, his loved ones are treasures and cannot die. Others are grass roots, and even when they die, they are eaten. What logic? Why didn't a snake bite him to death? When you fall down, you think, the old man sneered, why don't you say you'll thunder and kill him? Qingyun was stunned for a moment and looked at the old man. I said it out loud. This weather is too thunderstorm to strike. Then I looked up at the sky, the bright sun shining brightly, dazzling my eyes. The criminal finally cried enough, gently put down his second brother, walked towards the two with red eyes, and stared at them with bloodthirsty eyes. Bastards, how dare you kill my younger brother? I won't let you go. I want you to pay for your life, you're better off than dead. The thug took out a dagger from his arms, with a grim expression on his face. Qingyun rolled her eyes and said as if she didn't kill those two people, they would let her go. She feels like she's living or dying now, how can she still feel like living or dying? Peeling and cramping. The old man also looked indifferent, as if the criminal was farting. Still smelling, he waved his hand. Qingyun's eyes twitched and he was dying. Can we let people die peacefully? Can we not stimulate the criminals? Have you not seen the criminal go crazy? In the eyes of the old man, Qingyun only had one meaning. Old man, can we save ourselves trouble? Have you ever seen someone kill a pig? You are pigs. I will open your stomach and cut your flesh with one knife, string it into strings. Well, it's not over yet. Anyway, it's not good to die. Let's just talk a little cheaper. Qingyun turned his head and bared his teeth to provoke him, come on, grandson. When grandpa is afraid of you, if grandpa calls out, it will be your grandson. It was the old man's turn to stare at her. My life is almost gone, and the old man still cares about it. Qingyun also subdued him. Please ask for a ticket, end of this chapter.